before resuming normal operations now that the air monitor is situated nearby. Therefore, I suggest that the only prudent thing to do is for ORCAA to renew the Simpson air operating permit for 1 year only, to allow time for background pollution data to be collected with the new downtown air monitor. In this way, ORCAA would have relevant and legitimate data to base a decision upon, data which accurately reflects the actual situation. In this way, appropriate upgrading of Simpson's regulatory measures can be installed, if needed, before the air permit is renewed for the full 5 years. Thank you.
And I'll just remind folks, if you do have written comments, we'd appreciate a copy of your testimony being left. It helps us in the transcription of the testimony as well.
John Cox from Shelton. We are here tonight because Simpson Lumber wants to renew its 5-year permit to pollute the air. In the past, this process has been a foregone conclusion, and I'm sure there are various forces that intended that it stay that way. In the past, Simpson's contract with the community was to provide jobs and make some people rich while externalizing some of its operating costs by being permitted to pollute the environment. But I think times are changing. There are 3 primary reasons for the change. The first is that it's getting harder and harder to deny global warming and Simpson's contribution to it. The second is, with many thanks to Adage, that many local citizens have educated themselves to the true cost of Simpson's operations to their health and to the health of the environment. We are no longer willing to just accept the old permitting habits without question or challenge. And third, Simpson is no longer the employment powerhouse it once was in Mason County. This is why this public hearing is even happening at all. My specific question concerns the very noticeable stench that occurs at frequent intervals when Simpson is operating its incinerator. I know there have been numerous complaints about this made to ORCAA, but I've yet to see or smell any evidence of anything being done about it. What is the cause of the stench? Are objectionable odors not covered by the operating permit? Can Simpson be made to improve their pollution control so that odors and other threats to our health are reduced? Actually, Simpson, why haven't you already done something about this? Or are we supposed to just accept a stinking, polluting eyesore as status quo? I don't think so. Thank you for your time.
Conley Watson, followed by Mike O'Connor, and then John Smith.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Conley Watson. I'm from Mason County. I just have a question or two. I noticed in the presentation the gentleman made on the 2.5 particles. They're in the tons and they emit 117. My question is, it's been noted that the American Lung Association, the Heart, and the Health, they determined that there has not been enough testing done on this permit because of the pollutants that they will emit. I suggest, like Thurston County did, we declare a moratorium until more testing is done to get an exact figure on how much these 2.5 particles will put out, due to the fact that they can enter your lungs, go directly to the heartstring, to the heart, and you can kiss the world goodbye. Thank you very much.
Michael Connor.
It's not working. Pardon?
Mr. Gooden spoke about the fact that the application cannot involve new limitations on emissions. But I would point out that there is contained in it a vague limitation on emissions, which is a citation of the state law and also an ORCAA regulation about the applicant shall do no harm to someone else's property due to fallout. I find nowhere in the process or in the application anything to suggest that either ORCAA or Simpson has any means at their disposal or plans to do anything that would permit them to know whether Simpson emissions were doing harm, for example, to the shellfish industry in Oakland Bay. I've addressed you before on this subject with regard to Adash. And my particular emphasis, which is something I've researched quite a bit, is that there is this phenomenon of deposition, the so-called fall-off, that's in this state law and in the ORCAA regulation that I just mentioned, which occurs by either wet deposition means or dry means. We're a very wet climate, and I have some links that I previously sent to you that Mr. Lance read with some appreciation about how very predominant wet deposition is very close to any such source. The dry deposition can happen further out on dry days, but on wet days, basically that stuff gets rained out right around the source. And so I also turned up recently data produced by Ecology on sediments in the bay, which they did publish, though they finished only with the consideration of dioxin. I compared the sediment data on heavy metals with a EPA program on monitoring, which has contained in it, has produced a publication on threshold levels for the sediments. And two of the several metals are over the minimum threshold right now, suggesting that the bay is in a overall borderline condition with regard to the metal content of the sediments. That sedimentation happened over many years, a decade of burning wood around this area, around the South Bay. And so what I'm asking is that there be a proper deposition analysis to equip ORCAA and Simpson to fulfill the terms of those two regulations that you've cited, to show us how Simpson would know whether they're harming the shellfish with their current emissions. And as a matter of convenience, since Solomon is coming up, and since Solomon would be on Simpson land, would compete for the same wood supply, and would share the same subsidy, I would say that since you already have an air mod analysis set up for Solomon, that it would not cost Simpson very much to add to it a wet and dry deposition analysis. It just requires some further data inputs. If that were done for both Simpson and Solomon, perhaps Simpson and Solomon would together conclude that, notwithstanding the fact they're not obliged to adhere to more stringent limits for the current application, they might elect on their own to do so in order to reduce emissions of the several hazardous air pollutants.
My name's John Smith. I'm a longtime county resident. I've listed my email address and my P.O. box. Be happy to hear from you, but I'm going to be plain spoken. And in respect, I'm going to have to ask that your forbearance. I want to take a little holistic approach to this. So I know you want to focus like a laser on just the air pollution, but here in our area, it's all linked together. I know Simpson first met this company in the 70s in Northern California. Solomon, Simpson, it's pretty common sense. We all know we're talking about the same tribe, closely held family corporation, the same group of people, same corporate culture. And from listening to your gentleman's presentation, I noticed that there was a lot going on the honor system. You guys might have surprise inspections, but you depend on this corporation, this private corporation that's been polluting this area for many, many years, for them to behave responsibly. Well, let's look a little bit of the history and whether your faith you as an organization that's never, to my knowledge, denied a permit to anybody. Maybe you have certain enforcement actions that you take, but I've asked a number of people on your board and none of them have said, oh yeah, we denied a permit so many years ago, must I get, oh, I haven't been here long enough to know. But nobody's ever claimed you ever denied a permit. You're an administrative agency, you have to abide by the rules established by Congress and our state legislature. I want to talk about Simpson for a minute. It's become known that we have the heaviest dioxin contamination just about in the Puget Sound. 902 parts per trillion here in the bay, in the harbor. Not as heavy as you get further out in Oakland Bay. And the question is come up repetitively, well, how do you get there? Well, Simpson, a number of its defenders here said, well, who knows, could have been Rainier or, lots of industries here. Actually, it is known. Your employee, Mr. Lance Gordon, actually gave me the clue to find the smoking gun. Now, I assumed that all of this dioxin came out of the smokestacks. No, back in the 80s, and you talked about these electrostatic precipitators, and at the time, Simpson had a bag house, kind of like your vacuum cleaner, to collect a lot of these particulates. And in fact, the vast majority of the dioxin was in these particulates. Now, you don't have a system for these 2.5 micron particles. Can't even see them. That's why your lungs can't clean them out. They go into your bloodstream. They're the most harmful of all. That's current science. The dioxin, how did all that dioxin get there? Actually, there's a federal government study paid by our tax dollars that investigated this. And Simpson took this ash that was loaded with dioxin, and what they do with it? They flushed it down our sewers into our sewage treatment plant, which wasn't designed to handle dioxin. And of course, it all ended up out in the bay and in our harbor here. And what they didn't flush that way, and we've known since Vietnam how dangerous dioxin is. One of the most dangerous chemicals known to man. Birth defects, it's persistent, it's bioaccumulative. What they didn't dump down our sewers, they hauled to these uncertified landfills, two of them, private landfills up around Matlock, and they covered it with wood chips. Now, I would urge you not to trust this company as far as you could throw it. You're not monitoring the smokestacks, Lance Gordon tells me, because you don't have the money. It's too expensive for the dioxin coming out the smoke. And I don't know what they're going to do with the ash, but you can't trust this company, and the people that spoke are absolutely right. You need a one-year moratorium to at least see what our current air monitoring system is revealing, especially for a company that would victimize the community like that, knowingly. Thank you.
Deborah Silver. First, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to discuss the renewal of the Simpson operating permit. I'm concerned about the detrimental health effects of the pollution and particulate matter that is exhausted from the Simpson smokestacks. I'm drawing my information from a table created by the National Cancer Institute, which compiled its incidence data from the National Program of Cancer Registry's Cancer Surveillance System, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and from the National Cancer Institute's Surveillance, Epidemiology, and End Results Program. According to the National Cancer Institute, Mason County ranks highest in the state in the annual incidence rate for all cancers. For lung and bronchus cancers, Mason County rates second. When citizens approach our elected officials regarding our air and water quality concerns, they point us to the regulatory agencies and tell us to let the permitting process work. Well, as citizens have attended meetings and been in contact with the various permitting agencies, it has become very clear that the permitting process is broken. We have found no evidence of permits being denied. Rather, the agencies bend over backwards in order to help the corporate applicants come into compliance. including issuing multiple variances in critical areas. My question I have is, treated wood goes into the kilns to be dried. Does ORCAA monitor the chemicals that are emitted in that process? And once again, I'm here to petition you, the Olympic Regional Clean Air Authority, to do your due diligence and strengthen your permitting process. Please give consideration to the health and well-being of the citizens who will be directly impacted by the polluted air that Simpson continues to emit, and consider the effects of the polluted air on Oakland Bay's already dangerously tainted waters. Thank you.
Tom Davis, Terry Thompson.
Thank you. My name is Tom Davis. All I can say is me too for the last speaker. But what I would like to interject a little common sense into this issue. And what I'd like to say is that I don't think there's too many people around here who actually believe that Simpson is going to go away and this is going to roll back to the pristine air quality that we used to have. So on a more pragmatic level, I'd like you, the folks at ORCAA, to see where Simpson is located at the end of the street. That puts us in a little bit of a bottle here. Now, there are certain contaminants that you can breathe as you pass by, as you go through a tunnel, that kind of thing. But when you're exposed to them on a 724, 365 basis, those things become extraordinarily toxic. And that's the problem here, as I see it, a more practical problem. Since the town is not going to move, and Simpson does contribute on an economic level significantly to the betterment of the town, and Simpson is not going to move, then the onus falls on you. And by that I mean that you would need to ratchet up your oversight, your investigations, your possible spot investigations, surprise investigations, and so on. If ever there was a situation that warrants additional oversight, this would be it. For a variety of reasons, a lot of people with means don't live in town. When my wife and I moved here, we wanted to live in town, wasn't going to happen. So we moved outside. Most of our local officials do not live in Shelton. Very good reason for that. If they have the wherewithal to not have to breathe these contaminants every day of the year, you wouldn't either. The other thing is that I think we're number 37 out of 39 counties, which we've come up to in terms of health. We have very poor overall health and risk factors and so on. Again, I just kind of like to say that if you look at where the proximity of the plant is to where the highest density of the population of Mason County is, I think the problem becomes very apparent to you. So I'm asking you to increase your level of oversight. And I know that funds are not available to do so, but this is a particularly serious situation we have here, and we'd like it to have attention that's commensurate with the dangers that we perceive. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Terry Thompson. Okay, and I'm going to apologize. I don't have my reading glasses. Can't see the first name. K. Peace or Price? Pierce? I apologize.
That's okay. I have terrible handwriting. I apologize. And I'd like to thank you for being here and giving us this opportunity to come and speak. Oh, I'm sorry. Catherine Price, 603 South 9th Street, Shelton, Washington. I live up on the hill from the harbor, and I work downtown, so I get the effects of Shelton, of Simpson 24/7. But to begin with, I would like to read ORCAA's mission statement and ORCAA's vision statement. ORCAA's mission statement: we promote air quality and take actions to protect the health and welfare of people and the natural environment in ORCAA's jurisdiction. ORCAA's vision statement: all individuals in ORCAA's jurisdiction, especially children and the elderly, can live, work, and play in a healthful and clean environment, free from the harmful and destructive effects of pollution. On January 31, 2011, ORCAA held a public hearing in connection with the Adage permit application. During that hearing, 6 hours of testimony was submitted to ORCAA by scientists, doctors, and concerned citizens who had familiarized themselves with the dangers presented by an adage facility. I respectfully request that the contents of that hearing and the comments and the questions presented to ORCAA at that hearing be incorporated into this hearing by reference and provided to EPA Region 10 when you forward the permit, and that especially the scientific and medical testimony be included in the record of this hearing and provided to EPA 10 for their information and consideration. The science does not change from Johns Prairie to the Shelton Harbor, and ORCAA was given a pass on having to respond to our questions and our comments when Adage withdrew their application. ORCAA should not be allowed to ignore those questions or that 6 hours of citizen testimony, and I hope that you will include it in your record of this hearing and respond at this time to the citizens' concerns presented to you on January 31, 2011. The concerns expressed about the Adage facility apply equally to the Simpson facility. In my review of the technical support document associated with the Simpson air operating permit, I learned that Olympic Panel Products bought the plywood mill in 2003, thereby making Simpson Lumber Company and Olympic Panel Products separate source polluters for purposes of the pollution generated in the harbor from these two entities. Because of this, the total amount of pollution which is generated in this one industrial site is considered to be from two sources, Simpson and Olympic Panel. Because Simpson and Olympic Panel exist in a symbiotic relationship with each providing product and services to the other, and also because of their close physical proximity, this separate source determination is really just a shell game. This shell game allows two businesses who are dependent on each other and who operate in a single location to pollute our communities simultaneously while the effects of their pollution are calculated separately. The result is that the total sum of their pollution is not added together to arrive at the actual tons per year of pollution the public is being subjected to by these combined operations in our harbor. This shell game is condoned by ORCAA and it is sustained by legislation written for industry. The shell game is extended even further when we look at the planned Solomon Renewable Energy Company and the determination by the Department of Ecology that Simpson and Solomon are separate sources for pollution. As if to prove the nature of the shell game, in its 4-page reply to my inquiry in connection with their separate source determination, the Department of Ecology wrote, "The apparent family ownership of Simpson by Reed family members, Simpson Renewable Energy, the apparent family ownership of Solomon Renewable Energy Company by Reed family members who individually are also part owners of Simpson Investment or one of the other Simpson companies is another aspect that gives an appearance of common control and ownership. In further investigating common employment or other common control by Mr. Douglas Reed over Solomon and Simpson, Mr. Dave McEntee of Simpson contacted me and stated that at no time was Mr. Reed an employee of both Simpson and Solomon. Mr. Reed resigned his position with Simpson to work exclusively for Solomon." End of quote from the Ecology letter. This is the sort of the gaming of the rules that the citizens find disturbing. This is the sort of gaming of the rules that ORCAA condones when it allows these industries to operate within a stone's throw of one another while not considering their pollution as a single source. If Solomon Renewal Energy Company decides to get back into the game, ORCAA and Ecology will accept that there will be 3 distinct separate source polluters from the harbor. The total volume of the tons of pollutants will not be added together for purposes of future permitting, but will be separated, allowing the various entities in the harbor to come in under the wire for some pollutants, which will allow them to continue to pollute over the city of Shelton and its neighborhoods. By the rules conveniently established through years of legislation favoring industry's profits over the citizens' health, the game is stacked in favor of the polluting industries. When ORCAA, whose vision statement says all individuals in their jurisdiction, especially children and the elderly, can live, work, and play in a healthful and clean environment, free from the harmful and destructive effects of pollution, when ORCAA looks upon the industries in the harbor as separate sources and all but denies the harmful and destructive effects of air pollution, what are the citizens to think? Where are we to turn for protection when the agencies which we believe exist to protect the health of the citizens really exist to help protect the profits of industry? Simpson is requesting that its air operating permit be renewed for another 5 years. It is the expectation of the citizens that in the next year or two, the Environmental Protection Agency will increase standards for air pollution, making the issuance of a 5-year operating permit to Simpson at this time inappropriate, as it might allow Simpson to continue to pollute at the present standards until its permit expires. I respectfully request that ORCAA issue the permit for a time period less than 5 years in order to allow agencies to revisit the Simpson AOP when the pollution limits are revised by the EPA. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave McEntee, followed by Connie Simpson.
My name's Dave McEntee. I'm here representing Simpson Lumber Company on Front Street, Shelton, Washington. First, I'd like to thank you for the chance to provide public comment and thank all the citizens that are here today expressing their views as well. I think it's part of our process and it's healthy to air issues, I think, and I'll just try to touch on a few items that I've heard today that I think are important. First of all, Simpson has made a strong commitment to comply with all rules and regulations that are both limitation-based as well as health-based, and those rules are set up by both ORCAA and especially the federal agency at Environmental Protection Agency. We understand the significance of the health-based rules, and we do know that there are ambient limits out there that do take into account all sources of pollutants, and our permit and our operations are judged against those in an appropriate way. With respect to a couple comments, just quickly, there was a question or a suggestion that maybe Simpson isn't operating in a normal pattern because of a downtown air monitor. The fact is that we all know the economic downturn today has caused the building industry to take a significant curtailment, and as a result, our mills have been curtailed due to the lack of demand for our lumber products. But we have looked at the air monitor on the roof of the building here in downtown Shelton and compared that with our operating of our boiler. And we've noticed that there is not a correlation between the days of heaviest operation of our boiler and emissions in the monitor downtown. So with that, while it isn't a full year of data, it certainly suggests no correlation between that boiler operation and the monitor itself. With respect to the dioxin study, in fact, Simpson actually volunteered to participate in that study with EPA as in a goodwill, good neighbor basis back in the 80s. That study concluded there wasn't an impact from those dioxin emissions. That ash that was sent to the treatment plant was only done for a short period of time before it was discontinued, and those residues were deposited in the greater portions of the bay, where the gentleman acknowledged that the levels of dioxin were less, not in the higher areas in the Shelton Harbor itself. So there isn't a correlation that matches well, and EPA did look at that at the time and determined there wasn't an effect from that. But certainly we are engaged in that process with Ecology, and we will continue to work hard with respect to contribution and responsibility for any contaminants that are ours. Further, the Department of Health did a recent study of the health of shellfish in Oakland Bay and found them to be safe for human consumption, and they looked at accumulation of pollutants in that regard and didn't find any that would subject those shellfish to any type of harm, either in their biota or in a consumption basis by humans. So there is work afoot by the state agencies and the federal agencies to monitor these very things that are being suggested today as problems by the community. Our commitment is to continue to comply as folks who have been here for decades as we have. I think everybody could attest that air quality has improved over the years. Air pollution control devices have certainly been added. There's a great deal of cost and expense that Simpson goes to maintain this equipment. There is third-party monitoring and verification. This isn't just a Scouts Honor kind of program as was suggested. The agency is thorough in its work, and we understand that and appreciate them for the thorough work that they do. It keeps us aware of new regulations and challenges us to continue to get better, and that's our commitment to this community, to continue to operate in an environmentally sustainable way, a healthy economic way, so we can be a cooperating member of the community as we have been in the past. So I thank you for your time and also that of the citizens.
And if there's anyone that has not signed up but does want to speak, please join me over here.
Hello, my name is Connie Simpson. I'm a registered nurse. I live at 81 Southeast Mill Creek Road in Shelton. And I have a couple of questions. One are the limitations on particles smaller than 2.5 microns or only 2.5 microns or larger regulated, because it's my understanding that most filters do not catch particles smaller than 2.5 microns, yet they are filtered through our lungs and into our bloodstream. And there is an enormous difference when it comes to human health or lung health between particles smaller than 2.5 microns and those larger. I'd also like to know from ORCAA, what exactly does the monitor